¿Qué es la que hay? Welcome to Tony West DIY. My name is West, and thank you all for being with me in this process, installing the Borg Warner EFR 9180 with the Turblowns cast manifold and the Turbo Smart wastegates. We're almost done. This is the third episode. If you haven't missed the first two, you can either click on this card to watch the last one, or you can click below on the link in order to start seeing the whole series. In the last episode, we had two issues. One of them was the heater core that was too close to the turbo, and because of that, it was preventing me to clock more to the left side, the compressor housing of the turbo. The hood wasn't closing because of the 90-degree elbow. This is where I am. So I ended up utilizing the Turblowns heater line, but I had to modify it. Since this line, it runs really close underneath the turbo manifold anyway, I was trying to look the way to utilize it and not waste the money. So what I did was, the stock line, I cut it all the way down there, which normally if the car is a left-hand drive, that's where it starts anyway. And then I was able to utilize Turblowns rubber hose to kind of create like a small angle there, and then doing the same thing. By the way, this is how much I had to remove on the Turblowns heater line in order to make it happen. It's not perfect, but I think once I put the turbo here, I'll be able to clock it. If not, we'll see if this bracket is in the middle or these fan relays. But now we have more area here to work with, and we'll see what happens. I got a couple questions on the forum. There's a guy that is running a Garrett, huge Garrett turbo, but he has this turbo manifold, and he wanted to see the clearance because he has an excessive lower intake manifold and the turbo heated. So he's utilizing a 3/8 spacer down there in the turbo manifold. He wants to know the clearance versus, you know, heating the body of the car. So just in case you're in the same boat, this is the clearance that you have on this side. And the bottom, I think, is enough. Talking specifically, you know, 3/8. And then from the top, this is how it looks basically. Just want to put it out there, just in case you're in the same boat. This video might help you. Enough talking, I'm gonna modify now the bracket of the rat nest. So don't go anywhere and enjoy the video. Right now I have a legit question though, because I was reading instructions in the internet of how to install the water line. It really doesn't matter. You see, this type of turbos have two coolant ports on each side, and the instructions, it really say that it doesn't matter which side you use. However, you want to use the bottom port as a feed and then the upper port to go out. So there's another video that is show you how to install, you know, the turbo on the RX-7. They're utilizing this nipple to the inner side of the turbo, and then this one to the outer side. They're utilizing the lower port of the outer turbo to go to this one, and the upper on the inner side of the turbo to use to this one. My question now, since the water pump goes counterclockwise and the radiators always feed from the top, my assumption is that the feeding port in their case is this one. But since in the manual said that the feeding in the turbo has to be the lower port, they're utilizing this one as the feed one. I'm not gonna use this one because if you watching the first video, that water line that comes from the rear iron usually goes to the throttle body and then goes here. So I'm just gonna bridge from there to here. So I'm gonna use this port as the feed one, which is still above the water pump. My assumption, since it's going this way, is feeding from this one, so it has to go from the lower port of the turbo, and then it has to get out from the top part of the turbo and then go back to the water pump.
I'm so damn confused.
I don't know, comment below, let me know. That's what I'm gonna do. If one of you guys reach me and give me an explanation and say, no, this is the fitting, hit me up, comment below, and then I'll do the switch. But for now, the turbo fits perfectly. If you guys see, now I can shut the hood. I will have to relocate the fan relays as well because it was in the middle and I needed to clock the compressor housing more to the left. This probably I'm gonna put it underneath the headlight, but man, it's looking good. Also, the water lines, I don't know if you guys can see it there. It's not tight or anything, but instead of utilizing that nipple, I had to utilize this just because of the way the Turblown hardline is. Also, this side, again, I'm not sure because this one apparently had to be in the bottom based on the Turblown hardline. And you can see I probably can get away if I can get a longer hose, but I'll figure out. All right, so let's talk about wastegates. In case you haven't watched my previous videos, this wastegate is a TurboSmart Comgate 40. I have two of those. The purpose of the wastegate is to bypass gases that feed the turbo. So less gases to the turbo, less boost is gonna generate. I bought these ones with 14 psi in it, which is this one specifically. You see they are color coded, and I'm gonna add the chart which it tells you which psi is which. In my case it's 14 psi, so it's the red one. These wastegates are water cooled too, or can be water cooled. You can see that's the port, and the water just keep the temperatures lower, so it extends the life of the wastegates. There are different ways that you can install the wastegates. All depend the boost goals, all depend the solenoid that you got. Different solenoids come like 2, 3, even 4 ports. And before I explain to you the different ways, first I have to explain to you what are the different ports on the solenoid. In this case, the first port that I'm going to talk about is the right one. In this solenoid is going to be normally closed. That means that it's always closed unless the solenoid is energized. This port can be vented to the atmosphere, or it can put back to the intake of the turbo. Second port I'm going to talk about is the left one. This one is the common, or C. That means that it's always open. And the last port is the top one, which in this solenoid is the normally open. It's going to stay open unless the solenoid is energized. However, I'm just going to talk about two ways, the simple way and another one that's called T-way. I'm going to set it up the simple way. However, I'm going to show you the diagram and explain you a little bit without getting too technical. So the simple method will be going boost through the solenoid to the normally open and then to the lower port of the wastegate. You see, wastegate have the lower port and the top port. On the simple setup, this one just go to the atmosphere. Boost is gonna come here, is gonna push the diaphragm up the closest you get to 14 psi, because that's the amount of strength that this spring is forcing down on the diaphragm, keeping that gate closed. I always for some reason thought that the spring rate was the maximum PSI that you can achieve in the turbo. However, that's not the case. It's the lowest boost that you can reach. The way you can make more PSI is with the boost controller, putting less pressure in the spring rate, keeping the diaphragm closer for longer time because it's releasing the extra boost through the normally closed port. This method should work fine, especially if you're not trying to squeeze every single PSI out of the turbo. The other version I'm going to talk about, the T version. The second version is for more horsepower application. That is when this port comes handy. Instead of leaving to the vent, it's connected to the solenoid. I'm gonna put the diagram on the video because this one can be more messy. From the turbo, you need a line to the lower port of the wastegate. That area is gonna see boost constantly. In this case, the minimum will be 14. The line from the turbo to the wastegate should have a T to go to the normally closed port of the solenoid. Since it's normally closed, the boost is not gonna pass until it's triggered by the boost controller. The common port is the one that goes to the top port of the wastegate. Based on the boost control setup is the amount of boost that it's gonna receive. So the boost that it's gonna receive on the top is gonna push the diaphragm down, and it's gonna compete with the boost that is coming straight from the turbo here. So for example, if it's receiving 14 psi from the bottom mount and it's receiving 2 psi from the top, that means that the turbo has to generate 16 psi instead of 14 in order to open it. The more psi is pushing down, the more psi the turbo has to build in order to win that battle. I think the easiest way that I have to explain it, if you're a fan of Dragon Ball Z, just imagine Gohan versus Cell when they're throwing the Kamehameha and both of them are putting pressure on each side. In this case, Gohan will be in the bottom, Cell will be in the top. If Gohan wins, the gate is gonna open, so it's gonna bypass the sauce, so less boost. If Cells win and push it down, that gate is not gonna open. Bye-bye engine. Something that I forgot, make sure you install the wastegate seat, because if not, you're gonna create a massive vacuum leak. The catch can, the oil catch can. All right, some people install the 2 lines to the oil filler neck, like me, and others install one to the oil filler neck and the other one goes to the oil drain port, stock port in the rear iron. This is why I don't install the other line to the oil drain in the rear iron. Look, this is just nasty. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna run a 10 AN from here and then a 6 AN. Let me see if I can show it to you from here. Both lines are gonna go to the oil catch can located here. Other people run one line to the oil filler neck and the other one. Do you guys see that port? There is another one in the rear iron just like this one. This is where the oil from the turbo ends. The reason why I don't run a line to there is because of this. This is all that oil or whatever the hell the oil catch can is getting. The reason of the oil catch can, especially on turbo cars, it is to create a crankcase ventilation. All that boost pressurized in the crankcase and it creates what is called blow-by. So on stock cars, and if you pay attention to my first video, usually the crankcase fumes recirculate back to the intake manifold. The oil catch can is just all that fumes and oil coming from the crankcase is just collected here instead of going back to the intake. I bought more 10 AN line. I'm gonna take the measurements to put the old catch can back where it was and to do it right this time. The same with the 4 AN line that goes here. Here I'm just gonna put a small fitting and connect a line from the oil injectors to here instead of venting to the atmosphere. Couple things before I go. The water line, I had to bend the line out a little bit in order to fit it there. This is definitely the return line. I found a diagram on the internet and I put this line back where it's supposed to go. Hot water is coming from the rear iron back to the water pump so it can get cool on the radiator. This I couldn't get it work with the Turblowns line, so I ordered a fitting, a 90-degree fitting, and then I'm gonna connect a 180 hose from there to the fitting. I installed the Wastegate and the vacuum lines for them. However, I don't think those silicone lines are gonna last since there's gonna be a lot of heat down there. In the next video, we're gonna talk about heat management. However, later on, I might replace those silicone lines for AN lines. If you watch until now, I really appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you learned something in this video or I help you to figure out something, please leave me a like, comment, or share the video. And if you want to see the outcome of this build, subscribe to the channel and press the bell button. This is it for today's video. Stay safe, God bless, until next one.